Welcome, world, to the world of African biographies. On this channel, we discuss, get to know, and learn about African legends, experts in sports, icons in music, scholars, and sportsmen. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Now, let's get to know today's legend. Utata Unyerere. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Tanzania's father, or the president of Tanzania, former, of course, Julius Kambarage Nyerere, born 13 April 1922, 14 October, he passed in 1999. But before he passed, let's get to know his works, right? He was a Tanzanian politician, anti-colonial activist, and political theorist. He governed Tanganyika as prime minister from 1961 to 1962, and then as president from 1962 to 1964, after which he led its successor state, Tanzania, as president from 1964 to 1985. He was a founding member and a chair of the Tanganyika African National Union, which is known as a TANU, party of its successor. Chama cha Mapinduzi from 1954 to 1990, ideologically an African nationalist and African socialist. He promoted a political philosophy known as Ujamaa. Born in Butiama, Mara, then in the British colony of Tanganyika, Nyerere was the son of Tanaki chief. He studied at Makerere College in Uganda and then Edinburgh University in Scotland. In 1952, he returned to Tanganyika, married and worked as a school teacher. In 1954, he helped form TANU, through which he campaigned for Tanganyika independence from the British Empire. Influenced by the Indian independence leader Mahatma Gandhi, Nyerere preached non-violence protests to achieve this aim. Elected to the Legislative Council in the 1958 to 1959 elections, Nyerere then led TANU to victory at the 1960 general election, becoming prime minister. Negotiations with the British authorities resulted in Tanganyika's independence in 1961. Good job. And he traveled all around the world. Like, the things that African leaders did to gain independence, Lord Jesus, my Lord. In 1962, Tanganyika became a republic with Nyerere elected as its first president. His administration pursued decolonization and the Africanization of the civil service while promoting unity between indigenous Africans and the Africans, Asian, and European minorities. He encouraged the formation of one-party state and unsuccessfully pursued the Pan-Africanist formation of an East African Federation with Uganda and Kenya. A 1963 unity within the army was suppressed with British assistance following the Zanzibar Revolution of 1964. The island of Zanzibar was unified with Tanganyika to form Tanzania. After this, Nyerere placed a growing emphasis on national self-reliance and socialism. Although his socialism differs from that promoted by Marxism-Leninism, Tanzania developed close links with Mao Zedong's China in 1967. Nyerere issued the Arusha Declaration, which outlined his vision of Ujamaa. Banks and other major industries and companies were nationalized. Education and healthcare were significantly expanded. Renewed emphasis was placed on agricultural development through the formation of communal farms. Although these reforms hampered food production, and left areas dependent on food aid. His government provided training and aid to anti-colonialist groups fighting white minority rule throughout Southern Africa and oversaw Tanzania's 1978 to 1979 war with Uganda, which resulted in the overthrow of Ugandan President Idi Amin. In 1985, Nyerere stood down and was succeeded by Ali Hassan Mwinyi, who reversed many of Nyerere's policies. He remained chair of Chama cha Mapinduzi until 1990, supporting a transition to a multi-party system, and later served as mediator in attempts to end the Burundian civil war. Nyerere was a controversial figure across Africa. He gained widespread respect as an anti-colonialist and in power received praise for ensuring that, unlike many of its neighbors, Tanzania remained stable and unified in the decades following independence. His construction of the one-party state and use of detention without trial led to accusation of dictatorial governance. While he has also been blamed for economic mismanagement, he is held in deep respect within Tanzania, where he is often referred to by a Swahili honorific, Mwahimu, which means teacher, and described as the father of the nation. Let's go to his early childhood. Julius Nkambarage Nyerere was born on 13th April 1922 in Mwidongo, an area of the village of Buitama in Tanganyika's Mara region. He was one of 25 surviving children of Nyerere Burito, the chief of the Zanaki people. Burito had been born in 1860 and given the name Nyerere after a plague of worm caterpillars infested the local area at the time of his birth. Burito had been appointed chief in 1915, installed in the position by the German imperial administrators of what was then German East Africa. His position was also endorsed by the incoming British imperial administration. Burito had 22 wives, of whom Julius' mother, Mugaya Nyangombe, was the fifth. She had been born in 1892 and had married the chief in 1907. When she was 15, Mugaya bore Burito 4 sons and 4 daughters, of which Nyerere was the second child. 2 of his siblings died in infancy. These wives lived in various huts around Burito's cattle corral, in the center of which was his round house. The Zanaki were one of the smallest of the 120 tribes in the British colony and were then subdivided among 8 chiefdoms. They would only be united under the kingship of Chief Manzagi Nyerere, Burito's half-brother. In the 1960s, Nyerere's clan were the Ambagi Bwege. At birth, Nyerere was given the personal name Mugendi, which means walker in Zaniki, but this was so changed to Kambaraj, the name of a female rain spirit, at the advice of a Omugabu diviner. Nyerere was raised into the polytheistic belief system of the Zanaki and lived at his mother's house, assisting in the farming of the millet, maize, and cassava. With other local boys, he also took part in the herding of goats and cattle. At some point, he underwent the Zanaki's traditional circumcision ritual at Gabizuoyo. As the son of the chief, he was exposed to as administered power and authority, and living in the compound gave him an appreciation for communal living that would influence his later political ideas. Now, when it comes to his schooling, the British colonial administration encouraged the education of chiefs' sons, believing that this would help to perpetuate the chieftain system and prevent the development of a separate, educated indigenous elite who might challenge colonial governance. At his father's prompting, Nyerere began his education at the Native Administration School in Musengi, Musomo in February 1934, about 35 kilometers from his home. This placed him in a privileged position. Most of his contemporaries at Boitama could not afford a primary education. His education was in Swahili, a language he had to learn while there. Nyerere excelled at school, and after 6 months, his exam results were such that he was allowed to skip a grade. He avoided supporting activities. He avoided supporting he avoided sporting activities and preferred to read in his dormitory during free time. While at the school, he also underwent tooth the Zanaki food the Zanaki tooth filing ritual to have his upper front teeth sharpened into triangular points. It may have been at this point that he took up smoking, a habit he retained for several decades. He also began to take an interest in Roman Catholicism, although was initially concerned about abandoning the veneration of his people traditional gods. With school friend Mangobe Marwa, Nyerere trekked 14 miles to the Nyegina Mission Center, run by the White Fathers, to learn more about the Christian religion. Although Marwa eventually stopped, Nyerere continued. His elementary schooling ended in 1936. His final exam results were the highest of any pupil in the Lake Province and Western Province region. His academic excellence allowed him to gain a government scholarship to attend the elite Tabora Government School, a secondary school in Tabora. There, he again avoided sporting activities but helped to set up a boycott brigade after reading Scouting for Boys. Fellow pupils later remembered him as being ambitious and competitive, eager to come top of the class in examinations. He used books in the school library to advance his knowledge of the English language to a high standard. He was heavily involved in the school's debating society, and teachers recommended him as head prefect, but this was vetoed by the headmaster, who described Nyerere as being too kind for the position. In keeping with Zanaki customs, Nyerere entered in an arranged marriage with a girl named Magori Matia, who was the only 3 or 4 years old but had been selected for him by his father. At the time, they continued to live apart. In March 1942, during Nyerere's final year at Tabora, his father died. The school refused his request to return home for the funeral. Nyerere's brother, Edward Madzingi Nyerere, was appointed as their father's successor. Nyerere then decided to be baptized as a Roman Catholic. At his baptism, he took on the name Julius, although later stated that it was silly that Catholics should take a name other than a tribal name on baptism. In October 1941, Nyerere completed his secondary education and decided to study at Makerere College in the Ugandan city of Kampala. He secured a bursary to fund a teacher's training course there. Arriving in Uganda in January 1943, at Makerere, he studied alongside many of East Africa's most talented students, although spent little time socializing with others, instead focusing on his reading. He took courses on chemistry, biology, Latin, and Greek. His Catholicism, he studied the papal encyclicals and read the work of Catholic philosophers like Jacques Maritain. Most influential, however, were the writings of the liberal British philosopher John Stuart Mill. He won a literary competition with an essay on the subjugation of women, for which he had applied Mill's idea to Zanaki society. Nyerere was also an active member of the Makerere Debating Society and established a branch of Catholic Action at the university. In July 1943, he wrote a letter to the Tanganyika Standard in which he discussed the ongoing Second World War and argued that capitalism was alien to Africa and that the continent should turn to African socialism. His letter went on to state that the educated African should take the lead in moving the population toward a more explicitly socialist model. Moloni thought that the letter serves to mark the beginning of Nyerere's political maturation, chiefly in absorbing and developing the views of leading black thinkers of the time. In 1943, Nyerere, Andrew Tiba Ndebage, and Hamza Kibana Bakari Mwabachu founded the Tanganyika African Welfare Association, which is the TAWA, to assist the small number of Tanganyikan students at Makarere. Tower was allowed to die off, and its place Nyerere revived the largely moribund Mekerere chapter of the Tanganyika African Association. The TAA, although these two had ceased functioning by 1947, although aware of the racial prejudice from the white colonial minority, he insisted of treating people as individuals, recognizing that many white individuals were not bigoted towards indigenous Africans. After 3 years, Nyerere graduated from Makerere with a diploma in education. His early teaching, which happened in 1947 to 1949. On leaving Makerere, Nyerere returned home to Zaniki territory to build a house for his widowed mother. Before spending his time reading and farming in Butiama, he was offered teaching positions at both the state-run Tabora Boys School and the mission-run St. Mary's, but chose the latter despite it offering a lower wage. He took part in a public debate with two teachers from the Tabora Boys School, in which he argued against the statement that the African has benefited more than the European since the partition of Africa. After winning the debate, he was subsequently banned from returning to the school. Outside school hours, he gave free lessons in English to older locals and also gave talks on political issues. He also worked briefly as a price inspector for the government, going into stores to check that they were charging, although quit the position after the authorities ignored his report after false pricing. While in Tabora, the woman who Nyerere was arranged to marry, Magori Matia, was sent to live with him to pursue her primary education there. Although he forwarded her to live with his mother, instead he began courting Mariah Gabriel, a teacher at Nyegima Primary School in Musoma. Although from the Simbiti tribe, he shared with Nyerere a devout Catholicism. He proposed marriage to her and they became informally engaged at Christmas 1948. In Tabora, he intensified his political activities, joining the local branch of the TAA and becoming its treasurer. The branch opened a cooperative shop selling basic goods like sugar, flour, and soup. In April 1946, he attended the organization's conference in Dar es Salaam, where the TAA officially declared itself committed to supporting independence for Tanganyika. With Tibandebege, he worked on rewriting the TAA's constitution and used the group to mobilize opposition to colonial paper 220 in the district, believing that the electoral reform was designed to further privilege the white minority. At St. Mary's, Father Richard Walsh, an Irish priest who was director of the school, encouraged Nyerere to consider additional education in the United Kingdom. Walsh convinced Nyerere to take the University of London matriculation examination, which he passed with second division in January 1948. He applied for funding from the Colonial Development and Welfare Scheme and was initially unsuccessful, although succeeding in his second attempt in 1949. He agreed to study abroad, although expressed more reluctance because it meant that he would no longer be able to provide for his mother and siblings. his time in Edinburgh University in 1949 to 1952. In April 1949, Nyerere flew from Dar es Salaam to Southampton, England. He then traveled by train from London to Edinburgh. In the city, Nyerere took lodgings in a building for colonial persons in the Greenwich suburb, starting his studies at the University of Edinburgh. He began with a short course in chemistry and physics and also passed a higher English in the Scottish University's preliminary examination. In October 1949, he was accepted to entry to study for a Master of Arts degree at the University of Edinburgh's Faculty of Arts. His was an ordinary degree of Master of Arts, which was considered an undergraduate degree, the equivalent of a Bachelor of Arts in most English universities. In 1949, Nyerere was one of only two Black students from the British East African territories studying in Scotland. In 1949, Nyerere was one of only two Black students from the British East African territories studying in Scotland. In the first year of his MA studies, he took courses in English literature, political economy, and social anthropology. In the later, he was tutored by Ralph Piddington. In the second, he selected courses in economic history and British history, the later taught by Richard Paris, from Nyerere later described as a wise man who taught me very much about what makes this British tick. In the third year, he took the constitutional law course run by Lawrence Saunders and moral philosophy. Although his grades were not outstanding, they enabled him to pass all of his courses. His tutor in moral philosophy described him as a bright and lively member of the class and of the parties. Nyerere gained many friends in Edinburgh and socialized with Nigerians and West Indians living in the city. There are no reports of Nyerere experiencing racial prejudice while in Scotland, although it is possible he did encounter it. Many Black students in Britain at the time reported that white students were generally less prejudiced than other sectors of the population. In classes, he was generally treated as the equal of his white fellows, which gave him additional confidence and may have helped mold his belief in multiracialism. During his time in Edinburgh, he may have engaged in part-time work to support himself and family. In Tanganyika, he and other students went on working holiday to a Welsh farm where they engaged in potato picking. In 1959, he traveled down to London to meet with other Tanganyika students and attend the Festival of Britain. That same year, he co-wrote an article of the Student magazine in which he practiced plans to incorporate Tanganyika into the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland, which he and co-author John Kendo noted was designed to further white minority control in the region. In February 1952, he attended a meeting on the issue of the federation that was organized by the World Church Group. Among those speaking at the meeting was the medical student and future Malawian leader Hastings Banda. In July 1952, Nyerere graduated from the university with an ordinary degree of Master of Arts. Leaving Edinburgh that week, he was granted a short British Council visitorship to study educational institution in England, basing himself in London. Tanganyika. Now let's go to his political activism, founding the Tanganyika African National Union in founding the Tanganyika's African National Union in 1952 to 1955. Having sailed abroad, the SS Kenya Castle. Having sailed abroad the SS Kenya Castle, Nyerere arrived back in Dar es Salaam in October 1952. He took the train to Mwanza and then a lake steamer to Musoma before reaching Zanaki lands. There he built a mud brick house for himself and his fiancée, Maria. They were married at Musoma Mission on 24 January 1953. They soon moved to Pugu, closer to Dar es Salaam, when Nyerere was hired to teach history at St. Francis College, one of the leading schools for indigenous Africans in Tanganyika. In 1953, the couple had their first child, Andrew. Nyerere became increasingly involved in politics. In April 1953, he was elected president of the Tanganyika African Association. His ability to take on the position was influenced by his good oratorical skills and by the fact that he was Zanaki and he had been from one of the larger ethnic groups. He may have faced greater opposition from members of the rival tribes. Under Nyerere, the TAA gained an increasingly political dimension devoted to a pursuit of Tanganyikan independence from the British Empire. Nyerere himself was, according to Bejek, capsulated to prominence as a standard bearer of the burgeoning independence movement. On 7 July 1954, Nyerere, assisted by Oscar Nkambona, transformed the TAA into a new political party, the Tanganyika African National Union. Among the early TANU members were the three sons of Kleist Sykes Dosas, Aziz, and John Rupia, the later an entrepreneur who had established himself as one of the wealthiest indigenous Africans in the country. Rupia served as the group's first treasurer and largely funded the organization in the early years. The colony's governor appointed Nyerere to fill a temporary vacancy on its legislative council generated after David Makwai was sent to London to serve on the Royal Commission for Land and Population Problems. His first speech at the Legislative Council dealt with the need for more schools in the country, where he said that he would oppose proposed government regulation to raise salaries for civil servants. The government recalled Maguayu from London to ensure Nyerere's removal. At TANU meetings, Nyerere insisted that on the need for Tanganyika's independence, but maintained that the country's European and Asian minorities would not be ejected by the African-led independence government. He greatly admired the Indian independence leader Mahatma Gandhi and endorsed Gandhi's approach to attaining independence through nonviolent protest. The colonial government closely monitored his activities. They had concerns that Nyerere would instigate a violent anti-colonial rebellion akin to the Mau Mau uprising in neighboring Kenya. In 1954, the United Nations had sent a mission to Tanganyika, which subsequently published a report recommending a 20 to 25-year timetable for the colony's independence. The UN was set to discuss the issue further at a trusteeship council in New York City, with TANU sending Nyerere to be its representative there. At the British government request, the United States agreed to prevent Nyerere staying for more than 24 hours before the meeting or moving outside at an 8-block radius of the UN headquarters. Nyerere arrived in the city in March 1955 as part of a trip funded largely by Rupia. To the trusteeship council, he said, "With your help and with the help of the British administering authority, we would be governing ourselves long before 20 to 25 years." This seemed highly ambitious to everyone at the time. The government pressured Nyerere's employer to sack him because of his pro-independence activities. In his return from New York, Nyerere resigned from the school, in part because he did not wish his ongoing employment to cause problem for the missionaries. In April 1955, he and his wife returned to his Zanaki homestead. He turned down offers of employment from a newspaper and an oil company, instead accepting a job as a translator and a tutor for the Merconal fathers who were preparing a mission amongst the Zanaki. By the late 1950s, TANU and TANU had extended its influence throughout the country and gained considerable support. TANU had 100,000 members in 1955, which had grown to 500,000 by 1957. Touring Tanganyika in 1955 to 1959. Nyerere returned to Dar es Salaam in October 1955. From then until Tanzania secured independence, he toured the country almost continuously, often in TANU's Land Rover. The British colonial governor of Tanganyika, Edward Twining, disliked Nyerere, regarding him as an racialist who wanted to impose indigenous domination over the European and South Asian minorities. In December 1955, Twining established the multiracial United Tanganyika's Party to combat TANU's African nationalist message. Nyerere nevertheless stipulated that we are fighting against colonialism, not against the whites. He befriended members of the white minority, such as Lady Marion Shesham or Kesham, a U.S. born widow of a British farmer who served as a liaison between TANU and Twining's government. A 1958 editorial in TANU newspaper Sauti ta TANU, Voice of TANU, that had been written by Nyerere called on the party's members to avoid participating in violence. It also criticized two of the country's district commissioners, accusing one of trying to undermine TANU and another putting a chief on trial for cooked up reasons. In response, the government filed 3 counts of criminal libel. The trial took almost 3 months. Nyerere was found guilty, with the judge stipulating that he could either pay a €150 fine or go to prison for 6 months. He chose the former. Twining announced that elections for a new legislative council would take place in early 1958. These would be organized around 10 constituencies, each electing 3 members of the council, 1 indigenous African, 1 European, and 1 South Asian. This would end the concentration of political representation entirely with the European minority, but still meant that the 3 ethnic blocs would receive equal representation, despite the fact that indigenous Africans made up of 98% of the country's population. For this reason, most of TANU's leadership believed that it should boycott the election. Nyerere disagreed. In his view, TANU should participate and seek to ensure that the majority of the indigenous African representative to advance their political leverage. If they abstained, he urged that the UTP would win the election. TANU would be forced to operate entirely outside of the government, and it would delay the process of attaining independence. At a January 1958 conference in Tabora, Nyerere convinced TANU to take part in these elections, which took place over the course of 1958 and 1959. TANU won every seat it contested. Nyerere stood as TANU's candidate in the Eastern Province seat against an independent candidate, Patrick Kunambi, securing 2,600 votes to Kunambi's 800. Some of the European and Asian candidates elected were TANU sympathizers, ensuring that the council was dominated by the party. In March 1959, the new British governor of Tanganyika, Richard Turnbull, gave TANU 5 of the 12 ministerial posts available in the colony's government. Turnbull was prepared to work for a peaceful transition to independence. In 1959, Nyerere visited Edinburgh. In 1960, he attended a conference of independent African states at Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, at which he presented a paper calling for the formation of the East African Federation. He suggested that Tanganyika could delay its attainment of independence from the British Empire until neighboring Kenya and Uganda were able to do the same. In his view, it would be much easier for the 3 countries to unite at the same point as independence that after it, for For beyond that point, their respective governments might feel that they were losing sovereignty through unification. Major senior TANU members opposed the idea of delaying Tanganyika's independence. The party had been growing and as of 1960 had over 1 million members. In the August 1960 general election, TANU won 70 of the 71 available seats. As TANU's leader, Nyerere was called to form a new government. He became its chief minister that year. British Prime Minister Harold Macmillan gave his Wind of Change speech indicating British willingness to dismantle the empire in Africa. In March 1961, a constitutional conference was held in Dar es Salaam to determine the nature of independence constitution. And both anti-colonial campaigners and British officials attended. As a concession to the UK's colonial secretary, Lane MacLeod, Nyerere agreed that after independence, Tanganyika would retain the British Queen Elizabeth II as its head of state for a year before becoming republic. In May, Tanganyika achieved a self-governance. One of Nyerere's first acts as prime minister was to stop the supply of Tanganyika Tanganyikan laborers to South African gold mines, although this resulted in a loss of £500,000 a year for Tanganyika. Nyerere regarded it as a necessary act in expressing opposition to the apartheid system of the white minority rule and racial segregation implemented in South Africa. Now let's go to his premiership and presidency of Tanganyika. On 9 December 1961, Tanganyika gained independence, an event marked by a ceremony at National Stadium. A law was soon presented to the assembly that would restrict citizenship to indigenous Africans. Nyerere spoke out against the bill, comparing its racialism to the ideas of Adolf Hitler and Hendrik Verwoerd, and threatened to resign if it passed. 6 weeks after independence, in January 1962, Nyerere resigned as prime minister, intent on focusing on restructuring TANU and trying to work out our own pattern of democracy, retreating to become parliamentary backbencher. And he appointed close political ally Rashidi Kawawa as the new prime minister. He toured the country, giving speeches in towns and villages in which he emphasized the need to self-reliance and hard work. In 1962, his alma mater at Edinburgh awarded Nyerere with an honorary degree of Dr. Laws. During Tanganyika's first year of independence, its government focused largely on domestic problems under a government self-help program. Villagers were encouraged to devote a day's work a week to a community projects such as constructing roads, wells, and schools and clinics. A national youth service called Jeshi la Kujenga Taifa Army to build the clinics. A national youth service called Jeshi la Kujenga Taifa Army to build the country was created to encourage young people to engage in public works and parliamentary trainings. In February 1962, the government announced its desire to convert the pervasive system of freehold land ownership into a leasehold system, the latter of which was deemed to be a better reflection of traditional indigenous ideas about communal land ownership. Nyerere wrote an article, Ujamaa Familyhood, in which he explained and praised this policy. In this article, he expressed many of his ideas about African socialism. For Nyerere, Ujamaa could provide a national ethic that was distinct from the colonial era and will help to cement Tanganyika's independence cause amid the Cold War. 6 months after independence, the government abolished the jobs and salaries of hereditary chiefs, whose position conflicted with government officials who were often regarded as too close to the colonial authorities. The government also pursued the Africanization of the civil service, giving severance pay to several hundred white British civil servants and appointing indigenous Africans in their place, many of whom were insufficiently trained. Nyerere acknowledged that such affirmative actions was discriminatory towards white and Asian citizens, but argued that it was temporarily necessary to redress the imbalance caused by colonialism. By the end of 1963, about half of senior and middle grade posts in the civil service were held by indigenous Africans. You go through two stages in these colonial countries. One in when midnight comes, the clock strikes, and you are independent. Fine, but then begins a whole process of engaging conditions and changing people. It had been talking to the people, telling them that the second process would not be easy, but one thing must change after midnight. The attitudes of the colonial people, their way of treating Africans as nothing. This must change after midnight. The colonized are now the rulers, and the men in the street must see this. If they have been spitting in his face, now it must stop. After midnight, this cannot take 20 years. We had to drive this lesson home. That was Julius Nyerere on the deportation of white British individuals accused of racism. Over the following years, several Britons accused of racism were deported. Concerns were raised about the lack of due process. Nyerere defended them deportation, stating, "For many years, we Africans have suffered humiliation in our own country. We are not going to suffer them now." After the Safari Hotel in Arusha was accused of insulting Guinean President Ahmad Sekou on the later June 1963 state visit, the government closed it. When the white-denominated Dar es Salaam Club refused admission to 69 TANU members, the government dissolved the club and appropriated its assets. Nyerere avoided becoming personally embroiled in these controversies, which brought accusations of government hypersensitivity from some foreign media. Oppositions to TANU's rule formalized in two small political parties. The senior trade unionist Christopher S.K. Tumo founded the People's Democratic Party, while Zuberi Mtemvu formed the African National Congress, which wanted more racialist anti-colonial stance. The government thought itself vulnerable and in 1962 introduced a law banning worker strikes and the preventative detention law, through which it could detain without trial individuals deemed a threat to national security. Nyerere defended this measure, pointing to similar laws in the United Kingdom and India, and stating that the government needed it as a safeguard given the weak state of both the police and army. He expressed the hope that the government would never have to use it and noted that they were aware how it could be the convenient tool in the hands of unscrupulous government. The government drew up plans to create a new constitution which would convert Tanganyika from a monarchy with the Queen of Tanganyika as its head of state into a republic with elected president as head of state. This president would be elected by the population and would then appoint a vice president who would preside over the National Assembly, Tanganyika's parliament. Biographer William Edgard Smith later noted that it was a foregone conclusion that Nyerere would be selected as TANU's candidate for president in the November presidential election. He secured 98.1% of the vote, defending Mtembu. Democracy and the one-party state. Nyerere emphasized the idea of democracy as a principle. He described democracy as government by the people. Ideally, it is a form of government whereby the people of the people, all the people settle their affairs through free discussion. This is a decision close to that generated by the clergyman Theodore Parker, whose influence he acknowledged. He was also influenced by forms of localized decisions making found in various indigenous African societies, with Nyerere stating that discussing an issue till everyone's agreed was the very essence of traditional African democracy. He absorbed the values of liberal democracy but focused attention on how to Africanize democracy. He emphasized that post-colonial African states were in a very different situation to Western countries and thus required a different governance structure. Specifically, he favored a representative democratic system within a one-party state. He opposed the formation of different parties and the political organization with differing objectives in Tanzania, deeming them disruptive in his idea of harmonious society and fearing their ability to further stabilize the fragile state. He criticized the de facto two-party system he has observed in Britain, describing it as a football politics, in his words, where there's one party and the party is identified with the nation as a whole. The foundation of democracy are firmer than they can ever be when you have two or more parties, each representing only a section of the community. He repeatedly wrote arguments on these ideas, often aimed at Western liberals. Following the 1965 parliament election, in which different candidates from the same party competed for most seats, Nyerere noted, "I don't blame Westerners for being skeptical. The only democracies they have known have been multi-systems, and the only one-party system they have seen have been non-democratic, but a multiplicity of parties does not guarantee democracy." For Nyerere, it was the preservation of political and civil liberties rather than the presence of multiple parties that ensured democracy. Now, when it comes to African socialism, Nyerere was a socialist with his views on socialism intertwined with his ideas on democracy. He promoted African socialism from at least July 1943, and then he wrote an article referring to the concept in the Tanganyika Standard newspaper, where he learned that the term is not clear, for it would not become widely used until the 1960s. Nyerere saw socialism not as an alien idea to Africa, but as something that reflected traditional African lifestyles. In his view, a socialist attitude of mind was already present in traditional African society. In his words from 1962, "We in Africa have no more need of being converted to socialism than we have of being taught democracy. Both are rooted in our past, in the tradition society which produced us." He represented the traditional African village as well as the ancient Greek city-state as the model of the idealist society. Moloni described Nyerere as having produced romanticized accounts of idyllic village life in traditional society, describing his as misty-eyed view of his African past. Now, personality and personal life. Those who knew Nyerere in Edinburgh recall him as a not the casual type, a very decent fellow of a very independent turn of mind, a delightful person, a student with a clearly evident awareness of opportunity to learn, a quite likable young man of integrity, and a quite unassuming person who drew no attention to himself in a way some students do. That was from Thomas Maloney. Smith described Nyerere as slight, wary man with a high forehead and a toothbrush mustache. He was described as an eloquent speaker and a skilled debater, with a Bjerk describing him as having a scholar's mind. According to Maloney, articulated his sometimes complex ideas in a simple and logical style of speech writing. Nyerere was a modest man who was shy regarding the personality cult that followers established around him. In rejecting the personality cult, he, for instance, rejected ideas that statures be belt to him. In a 1963 memorandum, he called on colleagues to help him in stamping out the ideas of pomposity in Tanzanian society. As president, he, for instance, did not like to be referred to as either Your Excellency or Dr. Nyerere. Most staff members referred to him as Mzee, or Swahili word meaning old man. Smith noted that Nyerere had a respect for Spartan living and an abhorrence of luxury. In his late years, he always traveled by economy class. Björk described Nyerere as giving Mandarin speeches spiced with barbed humor. Assessing his early life, Moloney described Nyerere as a down-to-earth, principled, and had a strong sense of fairness. He was modest and unpretentious, in contrast to a good number of his contemporaries at Tobora's Boys. He was neither arrogant nor conceited. In focusing heavily on his studies, some regarded him as a touch precocious or even a sort or a bore. In addition, Maloney noted Nyerere could be manipulative at times, increasingly screwed with experience, and always tenacious. Björk noted that Nyerere delighted in wry irony, and all his emotion and his joy, angerness often poured out into public views. Harrelton recalled conversations with Nyerere as being exciting and stimulating, with the Tanzanian leader focusing on world issues rather than talking about himself. In Harrelton's view, Nyerere was a great human being whom always treasured his humanness, his humanity, if you like, more deeply than his office. For Harrelson, Nyerere displayed much humility, a trait that was rare indeed among politicians and statesmen. Moloney noted that in Edinburgh, Nyerere was quiet and fairly unremarkable, and therefore forgettable, and unobtrusive, unobtrusive and quietly competitive young man who kept his ambitions to himself. Nyerere's secretary Joseph Mata said that the leader jokes about everything and can shout if he is angry. When planners suggested infrastructure development from his home area, Nyerere rejected the proposals, not wanting to present the appearance of giving favors to it. Nyerere ensured that his parents' resting places were maintained. Smith referred to Nyerere as a scholar at heart. In later years, Twining described Nyerere as a very shrewd politician, an emotionalist. He is not greedy nor corrupt. I think he's a good man. Moloney suggested that there was a very shrewd side to his character, in that he was capable of playing to his audience by portraying himself as the betrayed righteous figure, being melodrama and even extortion to get what he wanted. The style of Sultan Nyerere was widely imitated in Tanzania, which led to it being known as a Tanzanian suit. Many European and American observers believed it similar to a Mo suit and interpreted it as evidence of Nyerere's perceived desire to great links with the Marxist Leninist government in China. Nyerere objected to his tendency to Western countries to view Africa through the prisms of Cold War politics. After the formation of Tanzania, Nyerere took to wearing a style of Zanzibaran hat called a kofia. In later life, he carried a small ebony stick known as a fimbo, which served as a symbol of his authority. Nyerere published widely. He wrote poetry and translated William Shakespeare's plays Julius Caesar's and The Merchant of Venice into Swahili, publishing these in 1961 and 1972 respectively. In later life, he and his many other Anglophone African statesmen was a avid listener of the BBC World Service broadcasts. According to Smith, Nyerere had a great fondness of British character and eccentricity. Raised as a practitioner of Zanaki traditional religion, Nyerere converted to Catholicism at the age of 20 and remained a practitioner throughout his life. Christianity strongly influenced Nyerere's life and political beliefs. Nyerere described Christianity as a revolutionary creed, believed that its message had often been corrupted by churches. He liked to attend Mass in the early mornings, and while in Edinburgh, enjoyed spending time sitting quietly in church. There is some evidence that while in Scotland he considered ordination as a Catholic priest, he avoided Christian sectarianism and was friends with Christians of other denominations. Into his later life, he regularly attended Mass. With his wife, Maria Gabriel, Nyerere had 7 children. When Nyerere was president, he insisted that his children go to state school and receive no special privileges. 2 of his children suffered from mental illness during the 1970s. Nyerere's relationship with his wife became strained and she moved to live with his sister for a while. He had 26 grandchildren. And that is it for this huge figure called Julius Nyerere. I hope you enjoyed.